Hi all, welcome to the Women in Community Broadcasting webinar. Lovely to see so many of you popping through, and I'm sure a few more will arrive as we start to kick off. My name is Holly Freelander-Lady-Goat. I'm the Marketing and Engagement Assistant here at the CBAA. This is my first webinar hosting, so please be kind. And if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to pop them in the chat box in the bottom right corner. I've got my right-hand man behind me. You might see his arm. It's very eerie. There's Danny, Chief Lead Member Services Officer. You'll probably know him as the big booming voice on the other end of the phone when you call us, ask for help, but he'll be in the chat box tonight fielding any queries you may have and taking notes for a little FAQ we'll send out after the webinar. I've also got Emma Couch and Geordie Caputo in the house at the CMTO. They'll also be in the chat box answering any questions you might have. And of course, Bethany, our women's rep, who will be kicking off this session. But before we get into that, you'll just see on the screen a couple of webinars coming up. Next week, we've got the Young People in Community Broadcasting session. A very similar session. If you're under 26 like myself, you're more than welcome to join us to talk all things youth with Pip Eunice, the youth representative. And on the 29th of November, you're hearing It Here First, your guide to the community radio station health check. It's a new health check, a new service that we're launching to help you and your station. So check that one out as more information comes to you. So what is this session going to do? This session will provide an opportunity for yourself, for women of the sector, to talk about the issues that are important to you at a sector level, at a station level, provide a bit of a platform to talk through the ideas that are important, that you want to see more of, that you want to talk about more of. And of course, this will be a sort of preliminary session to the Women's Forum that's hosted at the CBAA Conference every year. This is on the Gold Coast on the 12th of November, 11th of November? 9th to 12th. 9th to 12th of November. I should know that. It's not like I'm busy planning it with the team or anything at the moment. But there'll be a new women's representative elected. We'll give you some more information on that throughout this session. So if you are joining us at the conference, this is a great place to sort of start talking through those ideas. Anyway, let's jump into it. The CBAA's women's representative, I introduce you to Bethany Atkinson-Quinton. Bethany is a radio producer, presenter, and creative audio maker based in Melbourne. She's worked extensively in the community broadcasting sector across SYN Media, 3RRR, and PBS, and currently works on radio documentary storytelling podcast All the Best as the state coordinator and supervising producer. She produces theatre, podcast, audio stage, and works at PBS 106.7 FM as the Access Program producer. In 2015, she produced a podcast series broadcast nationally on the community radio network entitled Her Game, which explored how people experience their gender in the traditionally hyper-masculine world of AFL culture. She's retiring this year as our women's representative on rotation. The roles are 2 years, and as such, we're looking for a new women's representative. So I'll pass it over to Bethany. She will kick things off.
Amazing, thank you so much. Can you see my screen now? Let me just get it up.
Yes, coming up now, Beth, thank you.
Amazing, great. So I just realized that I should have given you an up-to-date bio when you were reading that out. Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to start today by, I'm really excited that there's so many of you that are attending and just welcome you all, and hopefully just let you know that I'm an access point if you ever just, like, you know, regardless of my time finishing up as the women's rep, but if you ever just want another person to talk to in the community broadcasting sector about, you know, your experience at all, I'm always down for a chat. And I just wanted to start the webinar today by acknowledging that I'm coming to you from stolen lands. I'm broadcasting or webinaring, I'm not sure what the correct terminology is, on the Kulin Nation lands of Wurundjeri people. It was stolen by white settlers, and the struggles for decolonisation of this land continue. I want to also acknowledge that decolonisation and genocide and colonisation are ongoing processes. So I just wanted to extend my respect to any First Nations people that are tuning in today or tonight. And yeah, I think it's particularly important to stop and think about our First Nations people, just because they're often still not recognised as the traditional custodians of the land. But welcome to the Women in Community Broadcasting webinar. I just wanted to note that, I just wanted this space to be inclusive for any trans, non-binary and gender diverse people that are in community broadcasting, just because I suppose that's not necessarily specified, but I just want this to be a safe space for anybody that is not a male to be able to kind of express their opinions and their experience of what it's like from their stations and what it's like being involved in the sector. This is me. If you don't know me, this is my puppy, Humphrey. And he's really cute. And for anybody that came to the webinar last year, I used the same slides, but I took a different photo with Humphrey, and he's now a year old. I don't know how much that excites you, but it does excite me. He's very cute. And yeah, there's my email if you do ever want to touch base, or if you're thinking about applying to be the women's rep. I'm super happy to chat to you. We can also have a phone conversation. I've also put my Twitter handle there as well. And I just put in the chat before as well, there is a Women in Community Broadcasting Facebook group that if you're not a part of, you should definitely join. It's just a great little space where people kind of post links to events and opportunities that are happening in the sector, and also just a space for if you want to bounce ideas or something off other people, there's hopefully a space for you to feel comfortable to do that. And I didn't have a picture. I didn't have a picture of Holly, so I gave you the CBAA logo. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so I just wanted to get to know you. Oh goodness, sorry. Last year we just found it quite helpful if you can use the chat box to comment as much as you want, because otherwise it feels like I'm talking to myself in my bedroom at my home, which is weird. Somebody said it was like doing radio, but it feels different because I'm in my bedroom. But anyway, what you do at your station. You wanted to just kind of like perhaps write in that chat box what you do and what station you come from, just to get a bit of an idea of who is listening and what parts of Australia you're from. So feel free to jump into the chat box whenever you're ready. Don't jump to it all at once. So I just wanted to start by kind of looking at some of the stats that we actually have at the moment about where women sit in the community broadcasting sector. Thank you so much for replying in the chat. I'm going to get to that in 2 seconds. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you a bit of a breakdown of the gender split. Unfortunately, it just kind of looks at a gender split of male and female. So there is not really a acknowledgement of any non-binary gender. But it's very, it's really useful. It's very useful information to have nonetheless. And it's probably not incredibly surprising what you're looking at right here. This is the staff in community radio at the moment. I'll let you have a little look at that. I'm so sorry about that, changing screens. So you can see, obviously there's less women, but it is increasing, which is really positive. The next slide, oh my goodness, I'm just going to put that over to the side. That women in the sector split down by role, and I'm aware that these are a little bit out of date, but they haven't changed dramatically since these kind of came out. And you can see that the areas in which women are, I suppose, more represented often in the off-air kind of roles. Male-dominated space is the tech space, which probably not saying a whole bunch of new things here, but it's kind of interesting to see it backed up by a station census. This one was done in 2013. So a bunch of questions go out to a bunch of different stations and they compile the data. This one broken down into different roles. I'm not going to go too much into this just because I think it's been spoken about quite a little bit. Holly's just said there is also forthcoming data coming up in the next month or two, which is updated and looks at more diverse gender identities. That's really, really, really great to hear that. That makes me really, really happy. But, you know, I suppose a lot of this data wouldn't be incredibly surprising, so I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on it because I'm more interested in you and where you're from. And again, this one is the volunteer split. And you can see that, I suppose, women's participation is kind of stayed around the 45. You know, it's fairly evenly split. I'm just going to go through the chat box just to keep up with what you've all said.
I'll let you have a minute digging through the chat box, and we'll just jump in and say that there is some new census data coming.
Yep.
Hopefully very shortly. I've looked at the final copy, so it should be ready any day soon, but I will include some information about data in the follow-up email, so you guys can have a look at it if you would like to do so. And yeah, unfortunately, as Beth said, it is still quite indicative, I think, of the split across the sector. And as you can see, mostly in the technical areas and these kinds of things, gender roles have remained quite traditional. So it would be interesting to sort of see how things continue.
All right, so it seems that we've got a bunch. Oh, we got Danae Gibson, Talks Producer RTR. Hello, Danae. Thank you so much for kind of stepping in and introducing yourselves and kind of explaining what you're doing. It's good to see we've got people from RTR in Perth. So we've got people from the CMTO and CBF, of course, the CBAA, 4EB. We've got people from all across Australia tonight, which is really, really exciting. What else do we have? We've got 2BBB in Ballingin in New South Wales, former presenter. So it's great to see we've got a diversity of roles in which people are acting stations, which I think will be interesting when it comes to talking about what kind of issues you find within your role at your station in terms of how, I suppose, your gender plays into your experience. Well, we've got Radio Adelaide. So thank you so much for doing that. I encourage you to please interact on the chat box as much as you feel comfortable to. So I just wanted to kind of compile a little bit of a list of resources that I'm aware of. This is by no means comprehensive. As Holly said, there is more data coming out, more census data coming out very shortly, coming out from the CBAA. But these are just a couple of things that have been on my radar in the last little bit that speak to gender diversity or gender representation. This kind of has a little bit of a focus in the music industry because I come from PBS, which is a specialist music station here in Melbourne. But I suppose, you know, these resources are useful in just being able to back yourselves if you're ever having conversations with people that don't think that there is underrepresentation of women, gender diverse people, non-binary people, that it definitely is a real thing, and sometimes it's nice to just be able to send somebody a link and not have to go into the, I suppose, emotional labour of just explaining yourself. So I know that University of Sydney put out a report called Skipping a Beat, which was addressing the state of gender equality in the Australian music industry. Yeah, no surprise, this is like a very short summary. The results aren't flattering. just another resource that I chatted about earlier is that the Facebook group that we have, it's called Women in Community Radio. Should probably change it because, yeah, definitely want it to be a space where people that identify outside the gender of male can, you know, feel totally comfortable to be a part of that group. There's the Women in Contemporary Music report that came out through Music Victoria, which again is, you know, consolidating what we already know, and kind of looking into some of the reasons perhaps why women have been excluded from certain spaces, and looking into things like the confidence gap and things like the pay gap, and I suppose how we occupy different spaces, and how, you know, things like intimidation actually play out in behavior and play out in the ways that, you know, who gets a job, or, you know, how you what your volunteer experience is like, things like that. The next one is just some great female-led content that is put together by the Community Radio Network, that is based out of the CBAA offices in Sydney, which was for International Women's Day. I can't remember what year that one is from, but yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. And then the CMTO, so the Community Media Training Organisation, who makes the decisions in community broadcasting. That is an article that came out a couple of years ago, I believe, but, you know, interesting to have a read. But if you have other resources or other, I don't know, I suppose interesting articles and things, like the Facebook group is a really great place to share those. You know, these are just kind of across my radar, and I'm very aware that it's quite Melbourne centric. It's yeah, but if you have other resources, like please do share them, because amazing. Thank you for putting those links up there. Yeah, but I think it's just great. I think, you know, knowledge is power, and if we can kind of collectivize and share these things and be able to talk about these things, I think that's really important. And yeah, just to reiterate, if you ever want to shoot the breeze about any of these, I'm totally down for that. That is my jam. I like talking about women's issues. Okay, so yeah, I suppose another important reason of coming together for this webinar is to be able to talk about, you know, what are the issues that you face at your station. I know that you come from so many different stations and you play a variety of different roles, but if you feel comfortable, it would be really helpful if you could perhaps write in the chat box, yeah, things that you find hard at your station, whether it's because you're maybe, I don't know, if it's intimidation, pay gap, there's so many different things. There's no right or wrong answer. I suppose I just want it to be a space where you can chat about your experience. Another kind of, yeah, these are just kind of prompting questions, but yeah, hopefully a space where you feel like you can comment on the biggest things that you're coming up against in your roles in your stations. What barriers are there to women and gender diverse people being involved in community broadcasting? I have a lot of feelings about that, which I can go into if anyone wants to get a beer, but we can also talk about it and what can we do about it. So yeah, maybe I'll just kind of keep talking, but I would, yeah, love if you can, if there's anything that you wanted to contribute to that, about any of your experiences. And even if you don't have anything to kind of comment now, just know that if you are coming to the CBAA conference that is happening in about a month's time, the Women's Forum, which will be happening, I believe it happens on the lunchtime on the first day, is a really great space to be able to kind of talk about these issues. But again, I'll be around, and there'll be a bunch of, I know, other amazing women around to kind of talk about these things with, but yeah, just I'm always here if you just want to have chat. But anyway, I'm just going to leave those questions around. Oh, here we go. Denise says, I think 3PVR has a very inclusive culture. That is really great to hear. That makes me really happy. I've got one from Irene that says, at 4EB, I have not come across any gender situation. Maybe some of the different groups would have this, but we try to make it more of a family feel to try and reduce this happening. We have women-only meetings where those who are uncomfortable in mixed company can come together. That's a really, they both sound really positive, and I really like the idea of having those kind of, I suppose, like safe havens where you can come together and talk maybe in a group of people that you feel comfortable with. I think that's a really great idea, and it's really good to hear that you haven't come across any gender situations. That makes me very happy. That's great. But I'm just going to keep going, but please do feel free to write in there. So I just wanted to kind of bring up, I mentioned this last year at the webinar for anyone that was at that, so I apologise if it's a little bit repetitive, but I just wanted to kind of go through, again, this is kind of quite Melbourne focused, but a couple of programs that I'm across that are happening, specifically aimed at encouraging more women, trans, non-binary, gender diverse people into community broadcasting. So I just thought I would talk through what some of those programs are, just in case, maybe they might give you ideas for your station, or even just, people to talk to if you're interested in doing a project somewhat similar. It might be good to talk to some of these people. Okay, we've got some, I'm just going to read out some of the comments. We have a new staff, Molly George. Hey, Molly, we have a new staff member who is starting next week who is gender diverse. What suggestions could you make to help them feel supported? I think that's a really great question, and I really like that you're asking that, because I think that, I think that if you can have, like, even if it's really small, some kind of training at your station that is included when people get trained, that kind of educate people about what it means to be gender diverse. So identifying outside of the binary of a male or female, so that means that they could be trans or they could be non-binary. I think that a suggestion, I would make sure that you have toilets that aren't gendered. That can often be a place of discomfort and can be quite confronting. There are some really great resources available, which I can find and send you a link to, about some kind of like training about how you can make sure that young gender diverse people are feeling, yeah, we're recording this and make it available in a few days. Yeah, there's some resources that I can send you of some places that have kind of like handy hints in a way of like things that you can start including in your training, whether that's like your training as a staff member or your training as a new volunteer, so that it's not just you not just you that's understanding it, but everybody. So it creates a culture in the whole station about, what it means to be gender diverse. Also, I think just one more thing is just checking people's pronouns and not assuming gender, which I know can be something that people struggle with. And yeah, if you stuff up, it's just about having the right intention and asking people before you're assuming their gender. I might just keep going down the list. So Danae Gibson, I'm looking forward to the forum at the conference. I've only been back at our... Yep.
Also, I was just going to pop in there as well, and just on that note as well, I'm currently working on some resources for the CBAA Resource Library, which I will get finished this week and send out to you all with the email, but on a slightly broader note about sort of how we can use more inclusionary language as broadcasters as well when we're interviewing people that are potentially gender non-conforming. Yeah, things about using correct pronouns and asking people how to make people feel safe as a broadcaster. So either as interviewing or telling people's stories that are sort of genuine, honest, sincere, and don't rely on sort of stereotyping of people that aren't gender conforming. So I will get that together this week and send that out to you all as well. But back to you, Beth.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's really great to hear. I know that would be really useful resource. I'll just keep kind of going down. So Danae, she's been back at RTR for 6 weeks and feel the culture is as inclusive as ever. That's awesome to hear. That's really cool. I can't wait to see you at the forum, at the conference. Lynn said, I think I must be lucky as at our station. I've never experienced any gender issues. Women are welcome and have varying roles from presenting to behind the scenes. Oh, this is just filling me with a lot of happiness. Emma Couch, I would really love to talk more about the confidence gap. I love how this sector can rally and support a range of causes, but a great opportunity exists for mentoring on a national level and solidifying our support network. The Facebook site is great, but what can we do beyond that? That is a really great question, and something that I would encourage everybody to think about. I think that, you know, for those of you that are going to be at the CBAA conference, this is definitely something that I'd love to chat a little bit more about, and how we can kind of have buddies across the sector, because I feel like there's a lot of solidarity that comes from just knowing other people and widening your, you know, your friendship circles, and just having people to chat to. I'm wondering if, you know, we could even kind of create some buddy system on the Facebook group, so that, I don't know, have a pen pal or an email buddy or a Skype buddy. I'm not sure. I'm open to ideas with that, but I'd really love to, like, I'm going to write that down so we can definitely bring that up at the forum. But if anybody has any suggestions for what we can do in how to solidify our support network, that would be awesome. Jordana just said, I'm part of the Ladies Who Listen mentoring program by Audiocraft. We should do something like that again. The last community media training organisation, Women in Media project, was funded by the CBF. That's a really, I have that on my next slide. So yeah, so for people that don't know, the Ladies Who Listen program is run from Audiocraft, which is a organisation running, oh, there we go, CBAA is willing to act as a central point for women attending the conference who'd like to connect at the event. Awesome. Yeah, Audiocraft is put out this wonderful initiative that allows women to connect with other women who are involved in audio, and you can apply to either be a mentor or a mentee. I believe the applications have just closed, but I think that's a really great idea, and maybe there is scope to do some kind of national project, which would be really cool. Is the training going to be recorded and available later online? I'm not sure what that means. This training? Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry, it's answered.
Yes, we record all our webinars, so you can always jump onto the CBAA website and shoot in webinars in the search button, and you'll get all the ones that are forthcoming and past that you can watch back at. But I will send this to you in an email as well.
Amazing. Oh, great. And thanks for that Audiocraft website. Audiocraft is just a great organisation to, I suppose, keep on your radar for other opportunities and just interesting things that are happening in the world of audio. They've got a great team of women that that run that wonderful organisation as well. So highly recommend keeping that on your radar. I'm just going to keep reading. Emma Couch, the saying that men will act and ask for forgiveness later, but women tend to wait until permission is granted, comes back to me every now and then. And I think skills and capacity building through training and making sure those opportunities are constantly available at our station aids this totally. I also think that, like, you know, this idea of mentorship and buddying is something that I was going to talk about. I've been running this training program at PBS, and our split of representation on air in terms of like women, men, and GNC is very, well, it is weighted towards men and has been historically at the station. So the program that I've been running is to encourage more women and gender diverse people into broadcasting. And I think the one of the reasons why it has been going well, or I don't want to say successful because I don't really know what that means in terms of this program yet, but I think that one of the most important things was making sure that people feel safe and making sure that people feel like they have other people to talk to, because I think this thing that you were talking about, Emma, about women waiting for permission is, you know, like, I suppose like comfort can come from knowing other people in the room, and whether that's just like that if you have young, or don't have to even have to be young, if you have women or gender diverse folk coming into your station, being able to support them in ways by just like introducing them to other people so that they know more people and they can feel safe, and even just like pairing people up to have coffee with each other that I think have the same kind of like musical interests, because PBS as a specialist music station has been incredibly helpful. And you know, then the flow on effect is that they've made relationships, you know, beyond that kind of formal mentorship or whatever it is. And yeah, I think there's just like a lot of strength and solidarity that can come from those relationships, and just knowledge sharing for both people involved as well. So yeah, I really like this idea of mentorship, and I really hope that yeah, we can get this going more at the conference, and I'm hoping to talk to you all. And just please feel free to keep writing. What do you think about gender quotas in community broadcasting roles, as well as on air in music programming, for example? I think personally, I think that gender quotas can be a little bit fraught in the sense that, you know, it becomes like a diversity tick box. But I also think that if it has to be this like superficial diversity quotation marks quota that you have to start with before you can get meaningful engagement, then I'm kind of all about it. So I know that's like a contradictory answer, but I say yes. Until we find any other way to kind of do it. I think that quotas, or even if you don't have quotas, like have stats at your station, create that really clear data if you have the resources to. I know that it can be like a labor intensive thing to kind of figure out, you know, the gender diversity in your staff, in your volunteers, in who's on air. But I think it's about exactly what Jordana just said. I think stations should actively think about engaging gender diverse people in governance positions. Yeah, I think exactly what you said about actively engaging people, which I think is the program that I'm running is about on air. But I think active like headhunting, you know, I think there's so many sessions at CBAA conferences that often talk about you know, like community engagement or youth engagement or engaging with certain communities. And, you know, there are already amazing communities and youth communities and women's group that exist. And if you can connect with those people in your community by like, you know, partnering with an organization or partnering with a arts collective, or I don't know what it is, I think that can be a really great way to kind of get not just that one person, but kind of get a whole, you know, kind of create a doorway to a whole different community that you haven't actively made space for. It's like, go out of your way to make space. If you don't have women, or if you don't have young people, or if you feel like you don't have gender diverse people, I think this is interesting what Giordana is saying about governance positions, because it should be in all, I totally agree. And I think that all areas of the, you know, at a state, at a sector level, I think actively engaging gender diverse people is really important. We have a good mix of individuals in general, says Jocelyn. That's really great to hear. It's really interesting to hear how people have had really different experiences, which is, I suppose, inevitable because people are coming from so many different stations. But I feel like it's a lot more positive than last year, which is, I don't know if that's symptomatic of the times, or I don't know, but it's really great to hear that there's a lot of positive experiences happening at your stations. I'm just going to continue going through some of these programs, and until I suppose there's more info on the chat. The Access program was the one that I have been running, so I can talk to that just because I know more about it. We got funding through Creative Victoria, which is our state government. So I applied for a grant to do a 12-month project to provide free training and then put out applications, but, you know, did a lot of, I suppose, headhunting, like approached a bunch of different kind of what I was talking about before, like arts collectives or other, you know, organizations that are doing interesting things in music. So in Melbourne, there's things like the Push or Listen, just, yeah, different, I suppose, kind of like grassroots music initiatives that we could kind of go out and, you know, try to get people that are, again, tapping into communities that already exist. But yeah, I won't go too much into that because I know that it's not super relevant for all of your stations. FBI in Sydney, I spoke to, I think her name was Andy, who was running the dance class DJ training. I think it's important to note as well that I suppose, like, when we talk about, when I talk about access, like financial access was one for us. So making the program free, and like some of the feedback that I got was this, that some people couldn't afford to do our training otherwise. And I know that it would be really different across stations about how, oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought because I was trying to read this. I'd be interested to know how many stations are active in succession planning and key roles in the station, and how many involve women coming up through the ranks. Yeah, that would be really interesting to know. If anybody has any comments about what Emma's just written in the chat box, I'd be really interested to know about that. I think succession planning isn't such an interesting thing to think about in community radio because, I mean, sometimes I think that it doesn't happen in my experience just because there's a lot of work and under-resourced, but that's just my experience. SIN's broadcast training for ethnically diverse women. Again, that was a grant-funded, you know, finite program that was aimed at a specific community in Melbourne. 3CR, I know, have recently partnered with the Australian Muslim Women's Centre for Human Rights, and they've created training for young Muslim women. Again, Audiocraft, their Ladies That Listen program that we have kind of chatted about, which is really great. And they're running it for the second time, and I have no doubt they will run it again. And I think that the fact that it closed so quickly the first time is a pointer towards the fact that people are really craving this kind of connection throughout, I suppose, not just community broadcasting, but, you know, audio making in general. Another thing that, yeah, International Women's Day is on the 8th of March. I know that at PBS for the last couple of years, I've been involved in creating special programming for the day. I mean, ideally, I would like to live in a world where it wasn't celebrated because it was so normal that there was nothing to celebrate. But at the moment, at the station that I'm in, it's definitely still a day where we put aside and we have all women broadcasting. We also had some gender non-conforming people involved in the broadcast to kind of speak about gender representation more broadly, which was felt really lucky that they wanted to participate. But yeah, I suppose just another idea of a place where you can go to, and that's kind of obviously looking at more on air, but just an idea of perhaps a day that you might want to focus on celebrating the contributions that women make in community broadcasting. And, you know, you could do that in various ways, but just a day that I thought I'd flag. And apparently today also is International Day of the Girl. So I don't know if you say Happy International Day of the Girl, but Happy International Day of the Girl. And yeah, any others that you know of. Again, I'm located in Melbourne, and these are quite kind of centric to Melbourne and Sydney. So I'd be really keen to know your thoughts on that. Just going to keep reading here. I think it's extremely important, and when I was on the committee of management, I was very active in trying to get a succession plan going. That's awesome. Try and do it through the board of directors. I think that is a common experience, lack of succession planning, but well worthwhile. 4EB have funding to do the Muslim Women Project. That's awesome. I've headhunted those that have skills to be able to join the committee of management, for example. That's really great. There's this article here that I wrote for the CBX magazine about some of these programs that I'm talking about. If you want to find out some more information, maybe the Community Media Training Organisation could do some training around succession planning. That's a really good idea, Jordana. 4EB will try and partner with Cairns FM to do a top of state and Brizzy show. Cool. Tracy, awesome, has kind of shared one of the benefits of targets is that it helps offset the barrier station managers say no. Yeah, a barrier being station management who say no to things that are different. That is really, really hard. And I would love to chat to you more about that. If Tracy, if you, if we can perhaps chat. I'm not sure if you're going to the conference, but yeah, that's a really, really, really tough one. But I think perhaps even, you know, showing the resources that we've kind of been speaking about can be perhaps helpful just to show that other stations are doing it. Not sure. That joint program will be International Women's Day. Amazing. That's really cool. Danae said we had a young woman who codes on the mag today to celebrate International Day for the Girl. That's amazing. I love that.
Just to jump in there as well, cool. Beth, something really that sort of, sorry, something that I sort of here at the CBAA, we've had some calls sort of about people at different stations who are maybe struggling to speak with their boards or management committees about having true representation of gender and gender non-conforming people on boards and in a governance level. And while it's something that can be really hard to influence, maybe something to think about is developing a a diversity policy for your station, and something that sort of lays out that this is something that we really want and will work to do as an organisation. And, you know, I sort of asked the quota question because I was curious as to how other stations think about it. I know that for Triple Z, for example, alongside their 25% or 50% Australian music quota, have a women's quota for their music programming, for example. So there's some interesting ways to go about creating positive change on a governance level where possible as well.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, I think that articulating the fact that you want to address gender diversity in your strategic plan holds you accountable to that. And I think it's a really positive way of identifying the fact that it's something that you're aiming for, and just making everybody at your station aware and being really transparent about the fact that that's something that you want to work on. Sorry, did I?
No, definitely. Sorry. Beth and I have a bit of a lag going on here. Everybody said, hence the long pauses. Beth, if okay with you, I might talk a little bit about the role of the women's representative and how to go about nominating prior to the conference, if that's all right.
Yeah, please. That was my next slide.
Too easy. I will just talk a little bit about sort of the technical aspect of it, sort of as the CBAA rep, but I'd love to hear from you thereafter just about the experience and what people will come to expect. But if you are interested in nominating, first of all, we've had a few queries from people who maybe won't be attending the conference, whether they can nominate. Yes, you're more than welcome to. I think traditionally people sort of get up and do a bit of a spiel introducing themselves at the Women's Forum, but we'll be working on having some kind of AV set up to make it as accessible as possible for anybody that can't attend the conference for any reason. So please don't let that stop you from nominating. Who's eligible? Any woman that's authorised by a CBAA member station is eligible to nominate. Everybody here in the chat book are CBAA members as far as I can tell, but if you're unsure, please just drop me a line and I'll be able to let you know that. It's really great and important that candidates do have some experience at a station and are familiar with this sector, hopefully. But like, it's not essential, but obviously will be really helpful in sort of your role going forward. We have a board nomination kit that you just have to fill out by this Friday, I think is the deadline, the 13th. So again, I'll pop that in an email and send that out to you so you can fill that out prior to that date. Unfortunately, that is a hard deadline because of, as you all know, the sort of deadlines around AGMs and these kinds of things. So I will pop that on. Terms are for 2 years, and we sort of roll in and roll out that way. But that's sort of the fine details about it, and I'll provide more information so you can access that really easily. But I'll let Beth talk maybe a little bit just about the experience of being a women's rep and what she's sort of learned.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Holly. So yeah, I've had a really positive experience as the women's rep. I kind of came into it after I'd done like a 6-month board internship with Sin Media in Melbourne to try and get my head around what it actually entails being on a board, because prior to this I had no board experience, which I think is really important to point out, just because you don't need board experience to become the women's representative, and in that sense it's a really amazing opportunity for anybody that is looking to kind of start their journey as a board member. Just to kind of talk to what exactly it entails, so we have like 4 board meetings a year. Then you have the CBAA Conference that happens once a year, where you'll run the women's forum, you'll run webinars like this. I think I wrote, a few articles for the CBX, for the CBAA magazine, and, there's a little bit of contact between those board meetings, but the workflow kind of happens, like a couple of weeks out. It kind of gets a little bit intense and you have to read through all your board papers, and then the board meeting happens, and they usually go for 2 days, and you get flown up to Sydney if you're not from Sydney, and they put you up in lovely accommodation, and you get great food. Not that that's the reason to do it, but it's a good perk. But I think that being in this position has really helped me understand a lot more about governance and just strategy, and being able to learn to ask critical questions at a governance level, and looking forward years ahead, which as a young person has not been something that I have been the practice of doing. So yeah, just being able to look forward and being able to think about how you communicate certain issues, particularly with the rollout of the digital radio project happening at the moment, how you communicate things to stations when you are a member-driven organisation, which the CBAA is, and you have members that you're accountable to, and just learning things like that have been really, really useful and eye-opening for me. And also in a more informal capacity, I was able to chat to Natalie Posdi, who's one of the board members, and she's kind of been my kind of mentor as I've come onto the board. She's been on the board for a while ago, and it's just been good to have somebody that I can call up and talk to if I want to get any clarification and things like that. But that's kind of, all in all, it's been a really positive experience. If you have any specific questions, I highly encourage you to touch base with me. I'll put my email on the chat, and you can also call me as well if you want to chat to me. If you are attending the CBAA conference, you'll get up and do like a kind of 2-minute spiel about why you want to do it and kind of why you're positioned to do it. Something I should also say is I feel like the women's rep is almost, because you manage the I suppose the Facebook group, which is very unofficial and lax, but I think that you're kind of meant to be a little bit of an access point between between women, sorry, I'm not explaining this very well. I think that you should be able to be comfortable talking to different women in the sector, and being able to feel comfortable to bring those things to the board, because it is really valuable, and your experience is really valuable. And yeah, just to keep that in mind if you are thinking about going for it. But yeah, in your kind of spiel, just talking about exactly, why do you want to do it, what experience you have, what station you're from, and kind of, a bit about yourself and what you do. Ideally, I think if you stand for an ordinary position, you talk about what you want to achieve. But I think if you can kind of speak to what you want to get out of it, that's really great. So yeah, it's a 2-year term. If you can't make it to the CBAA conference, again, just want to reiterate that you'll be able to do like a video, or you can Skype in. So don't let that put you off at all. But you do have to get your completed nomination in before Friday at 5 o'clock. So you need to send that to Rainbow. I've put her email address at the top of the screen. And yeah, you'll just need to get signed off from a station that is a CBAA member, which, as Holly was saying, I believe most of you are from member stations.
And we've just got a more specific question in the chat box from Tracy, just asking if the interested nominee needs approval by the station manager. I'm just looking at the specifics of the document, Tracy, and it says that nominators must be from a CBAA voting member and be authorised representatives of the member. So I would suggest that, yes, that means you would need the president of the station to sort of, or the station manager, to sign off on that to be eligible.
Awesome. Okay, share my screen. Amazing. So that's kind of a bit about that. But yeah, just to reiterate, I'm all ears if you want to, yeah, talk to me about it, and I'm more than happy to chat. And also, I remember when I went and got up in the room full of people and spoke about what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it. And I kind of spoke about, I'm involved in a collective in Melbourne called Listen, which is, I suppose, seeks to support women and members of the LGBTIA plus community in music more specifically, and spoke about the fact that, I suppose, my personal philosophy in life, I very much believe that putting women's and gender diverse voices to the front is important. And I also spoke about the fact that I had spoken to the women's rep before me, so maybe that will show as well that you are really interested in the position. So highly recommend. Please just come and chat. I'm more than happy to talk to you. I also just wanted to flag, we do have the Women's Forum. This is obviously a bit of a precursor to the Women's Forum, which will be happening at the CBAA conference between the 9th and the 12th of November. And yeah, it'll just be a little bit of a discussion around, yeah, a bit of an extension about what we've been talking about. And we will elect the new women's representative. So we'll have the people speaking, whether that's online or in person, and there'll be lunch. So that's good too. But yeah, if there's anything else that you kind of want to put on the agenda for the Women's Forum, perhaps we can put on this, having more of a look into this mentoring idea, because I think that is something that's kind of come up a lot, or this buddy system about how we can be doing that better. So I definitely want to talk about that at the forum. But if there's anything else that you think has either come out of this session or just something that you've been thinking about what the CBAA can do, or the women's representative can do to further support women, trans, gender diverse, non-binary people in community radio, I'd love to hear from you. And that's pretty much it for me. Again, just to reiterate, even though that I'm stepping down as women's rep, I very much in my life seek to support other women and gender diverse people, and I love community radio, so I'm always happy to chat. So I put my email there and my Twitter handle, and if you want to have a phone chat or something, we can arrange that, and I can give you my mobile. But highly encourage you, if you are thinking about it, I just recommend to nominate. It was a fantastic experience being the women's representative, particularly if you haven't had the opportunity of being in a management role or a governance role before. It's the perfect first role to be in, because I felt very supported and I've learnt so much, and I've never felt any different for being new to the board or anything like that. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, highly recommend doing it. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Beth, for joining us tonight and for giving that presentation. I think there's so much in there for everyone to think about and so much to read, and I really look forward to doing so and to sharing it with everyone who attended and more widely, of course. We've got 5 minutes left, so if there's any burning questions, please pop them in the chat box and we'll endeavour to answer them. If not, we will get back to you via email. And as I said, I will put all this together in an email, and please feel free to share the webinar recording and any of the resources tonight with anyone at your station, whoever they may be. I think it's a very important conversation for lots of different people to partake in. If you ever need a hand thinking about these things or implementing these things at a station level, please feel free to give the CBAA a call. You can ask for myself or my colleague Danny Chifley. Will be more than happy to talk to you about any of these things. I might just pop this bad boy on. We also had a comment in there from Irene about wondering if joining the board would be a conflict of interest as an NEMBC rep. I really don't think it would be, and I would encourage anyone, if you're involved in any other sector organisations, to please consider nominating, because I think the more that we sort of work together as a sector and hear from so many different diverse voices, surely we can only continue moving forward. So I really look forward to seeing all the excellent nominations. I look forward to meeting you all at conference for those who can attend. And if you can't, that's okay. Come to one of our next webinars. We've got the Young People in Community Broadcasting webinar next week, same time, same place, the 18th of October. And we'll have the guide to the community radio station health check on the 29th of November. Other than that, I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening, and we will speak soon, no doubt. Thank you all again for attending.